Pete Yost here for the Unbuild It podcast with a word about our sponsor, Huber Engineered Woods. There are really three reasons why I think Huber Engineered Woods stands out, and it's a big part of why they're a sponsor of our Unbuild It podcast. First, they develop systems of products. The products are compatible and integrated. Makes our jobs a lot more easy in the field and when specifying. Second is superior tech support. There are really good website resources that they have developed for the application of their products, but they also have an outstanding 800 numbered tech team that really knows their stuff. And the last is a really active technical research and development team with whom I've done a lot of work over the years, and I have a lot of faith in the information I get from them when I have questions about product performance. So that's it. That's our high performance sponsor. Now on to the podcast.
Good morning, Unbuild It podcast.
The editor loves it when you yell.
Who does?
The editor loves it when you yell.
I don't really care about the editor. Do you see any tears in my eyes for the editor?
He likes to smash things and yell things.
So speaking of smash things, before we even get started, smash that subscribe button on YouTube and let's get started here. So today you're going to love it because I'm opening up this podcast, but what I'm really doing is opening up a little mini series here in our podcast. So the next 4 podcasts are going to be what I call Love It or Hate It. And we're basically going to take the 4 control layers and we're going to talk about our love-hate relationship with the 4 control layers. And today we're going to start with water management. My good friend Peter Yost, Jake Bruin, are joining me here, so I'm not the only one going to be talking. And we're going to jump right over to Jake, and Jake is going to enlighten us. He gets to choose whether he loves or hates first. And tell us a little bit about water management.
So we always talk about the idea that Mother Nature always wins. Like we're not going to defeat Mother Nature. We have to live by her terms, and we have to do the best we can with that situation. So when we talk about love it or hate it, I came up with a hate and a love, but then I realized that my love goes both ways.
He's practicing for Switzerland.
So,
but that's okay.
The idea...
I'm intrigued, by the way. You've got me going.
You know, a pet peeve of mine in life, seriously, I'm sorry, I got to rant on this. But when I ask somebody a question,
they don't answer the question.
They don't answer the goddamn question. They got to answer it with, well, I kind of like it and don't like it. No. Do you like this? You either like it or you don't like it. There is no kind of like it, don't like it.
I think if you let me explain that.
Go ahead, but I'm already pissed off.
That's not the realm that I was living in.
Okay.
From an aesthetic standpoint, which is not water management, I love buildings that don't have overhangs. Residential buildings that don't have overhangs.
Oh, interesting.
As a builder, they scare the living daylights out of me, and I would do everything in my power to push to put overhangs on a building and find a design that does what you want it to do with overhangs. So my love it is overhangs from a water management standpoint, is what I'm saying. Put an umbrella over the building. I have this, and you and I have talked about this, Steve. I have this dream of buying a little piece of property in the middle of nowhere, a couple 100 acres or something where nobody can really see me, and then putting up a pole barn style roof assembly and then plugging and playing a couple little like cube buildings underneath
building like a little village of cubes underneath
one big roof, and then having just this outdoor space and having buildings that are 10 feet from any access to water so that there's no risk in what I have going on.
Think of the money you could save if you did a building like that, right? You wouldn't have to flash any windows.
So it's sort of like a dome approach to
yeah.
An umbrella. But you wouldn't have to flash. Like you could just get some Sega tape and tape the windows up for air tightness. But you wouldn't have to worry about water management at all.
Yeah.
You could just barrier it up with some airtight tape and call it a day.
This is not where I thought you were going. It's pretty interesting.
And it's like aesthetically it works in my head because then I get to build all these little buildings that don't have overhangs.
right?
Because they're underneath
But I've also
something else.
I actually pitched that to a client in Texas. We went a different route, but they were intrigued by it. Because the other thing is, you think about it in Texas, which I love Texas, but I hate being in Texas, if that makes sense. Because I've been there twice in the last month, and it hit triple digits both times. It's
And high humidity along the way.
it just sucks.
Yeah.
I don't
You
know.
get a
I don't
nice
know how
little
Texans do it.
Shaded spot to
If it
put your
wasn't
house.
for barbecue, I don't think I'd ever go back. But anyways, think about like all of that. That if you have like 30% under that roof is just a shading device for places to go and sit in a patio and this and that. It could be a really cool house. That concept.
Yeah.
Anyways,
So since you created this topic of loving and hating for control layers, where are you going to go with love and hate?
so I love an open joint rain screen. I can't get enough air to battle the water. And I just can't open the valves enough to get rid of water. And it's really interesting because people, the minute you show that, slowly people are coming around. But remember the first times when we did presentations together and you show that, people are like, oh my God, you're going to let all this water in and all of this. But they don't understand that water management is a rate question. It's how can I drain it and dry it as fast or even faster than I can wet it. And an open joint rain screen does that. And it does it very, very effectively.
Can I jump in on this loving open
Go
joint
ahead. You're
rain
part
screen?
of the podcast, Peter. I would love to hear what you have to say today.
So the thing I love about
Wait, I
open
didn't know we were going to vote each time somebody decided to talk.
Well, I still
we
wish I had
thinking of-
caramels, but for this moment. But it's a caramel moment.
So
I'm feeling
far,
it.
the two consecutive, you talk about caramels and barbecue related to the topic.
I
at
got to tell
hand.
you about the barbecue place I just went to. It was good.
So the thing I like about sorry, can't say like, I have to say love. The thing I love about open joint rain screens is there's no ambiguity about where the water is being managed. Because there are a lot of cladding systems where you can kind of get away with thinking that it's the cladding that's stopping the water. With open joint, it's like, whoa, that
Our
water
wall
is
has
not
to be
being
waterproof
managed
to
at the
start out with.
cladding.
Well,
So-
it's a giant multiple two-stage joint, right? It
Yeah.
sheds water, and then water that gets in is under no pressure drive, so it's forced to fall. All you got to do is provide that inner space.
That idea of pressure drive is actually very important too. It doesn't matter if a little bit of water gets behind the cladding in most instances. It's when it can't get out or it has a spot that it can build up, which if you remodel houses in my market that had, what's the company that went out of business? They had those little H clips at the end of their Color Lock. Color Lock. They were a masonite type product. A lot of that went on in my market before anybody was using house wrap of any sort. And you start pulling it off, and there's damage in 7-inch increments going up the wall or 8-inch increments horizontally in lines where the water got to the leading edge of that, the top edge of that piece that was nailed snug to the wall. And there was able to be a buildup of water that was enough to cause damage. But if you think about it logically, between that horizontal line that was damaged and the next one up, there's water migrating through there that didn't cause any damage because it was unimpeded.
Yeah. So, Steve, have you ever seen or done an open joint rain screen, an open joint cladding system that didn't also have a space between the cladding and the rest of the wall, meaning that it's a rain screen system?
No, I haven't seen one.
So that's kind of interesting, right? Because you get the
It's a
appearance.
totally different effect.
It's like, you could call it a water shedding cladding, right? Because that's what it is also.
Well, I was thinking that open joint is sort of like your cladding is a fence.
Yeah.
It's not a continuous surface. It's just keeps out robbers and baseballs and
It's like the ultimate sacrificial layer
Okay,
that
so
you can replace also.
real quick, we have to have the baseball conversation. You and I think it was the first or second project that we were working on. It may have been for Karen. The conversation came up about, well, if that siding isn't nailed directly to the house, what's going to happen? Like to the siding if it gets hit with a baseball. And I remember Steve going, "How about we don't hit baseballs at the house?" We have windows too.
Well,
those are not protected either. How about we just make sure that the kids aren't hitting baseballs?
20%
at the
of
house?
the wall is glass, and she's worried about the baseball hitting the wall.
I thought you were going to say they were worried about if you have a space, is the cladding really attached to the structure?
No.
Is that wasn't part of it?
No.
Because I find that really interesting that if the furring strips are structurally attached to the structure, then you can get away with only attaching the cladding to the furring strip because the furring strip is now structural.
All right. I'm hosting this. We got to move on. That was a good love-hate. No, your love for open joint rain screens was good. So my love for water management is
going to keep going.
Water testing. Yeah, I really like this. So I'm going to use Jake's trust but verify comment.
In case you couldn't hear that, he said trust but verify.
But I think, because one of the and this could potentially like slide into a pet peeve and con of water management, but
couldn't everything.
Everybody seems to have opinions about water, but they've never seen it, right? Meaning, you post something and people I just posted something that talked about 6 inches of Rockwell insulation. Half the comments are, well, what happens if the insulation gets soaked? How much water do you think is getting behind that cladding? Like if 100 gallons hit that cladding, you'd be lucky to get like a pint of water behind it if it's effectively installed properly, etc. Right? So the idea of water testing is, before you put up your cladding system, go hose down the house and watch where the water goes. Mm-hmm. Do it on a windy day is really cool because then you can see how the wind drives the water and the water finds an edge. One of the most interesting experiences from a building science perspective was Joe and I went to it was Lincoln Homes out in Chicago. We did a whole house. It was in XPS. Don't crucify us. In the day, XPS was the thing to wrap a house with. Mm-hmm. But we did it with untaped joints, and we water tested the whole house. And what was absolutely intriguing was, because there was no pressure drive, the water really wouldn't go in the joints. It would find the edge, and it would just ride the edge to the bottom.
Now, when you say the joints, were these the
joints of the XPS?
Horizontal and vertical?
Horizontal and vertical. But they were staggered, so it would go down, and then it would roll over and go down the sheet, and then it would find another joint.
But it was tongue and groove.
It was tongue and groove on the long side, and they railroaded it in, so the tongue and groove was always up.
Yep.
But yeah, water testing. If you want to learn about a building, go just spray water on it. Spray water on your windows and look at how they look. You know what? Do it before you tape them and spray them so you can understand and start at the sill, climb up. But it'll give you a really good understanding of how does water get in there, and when it does get in there, where does it go?
How does it get back out?
And how does it get back out? Where does it travel? All of these things are very intriguing concepts to help you understand.
We found a window leaking at my house that way. You and I did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of my favorite building investigations was a project where they had water leaking in at the first floor ceiling level on a house built right on the Atlantic Ocean. And it only leaked when it blew 40 miles per hour or more. And we water tested it with a blower door sucking, depressurizing. And we very slowly worked our way up that window. And about 3/4 of the way up the window, we hit the leak. It wasn't the window. It was the sconce light right next to the window. And it was underneath an overhang. It was only leaking when it blew 40. But it was a ton of fun. It took a long time. But the homeowner was like, how the hell did you think up this way of testing the whole system? So it was not only gratifying, it was financially productive as well.
Very few things are both.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, it wasn't for him, but it was for me. But
all right. So I'll give this one to you, Pete. So tell us your love-hate. Go ahead. You get both of them.
All right. So the thing I love about water management the most is the flush box thing. as Matt Reisinger
Are
says.
you using a weird term for a toilet? The flush box?
No, it's funny. But a slight diversion, we're going to do something on water efficiency. We're going to talk about bidets and bidet seats.
Okay.
Talk about toilets and water management. You didn't see that one coming, did you, buddy? Anyway.
They're not a drinking fountain?
I wash my hands on.
Whoa. I'd like to pre-apologize for where this conversation is going.
You ever use the bidet as a drinking fountain after you throw up in the toilet? Wash your mouth out?
Somebody spent too long in the Marine Corps.
There he goes with the military again.
Hey, that's passionate military. Oh, so military guys are just drunk and alcoholics that drink from toilets now, right?
That's where we were headed with that. Yes.
I've completely lost the train of thought, except to say I like
flush boxes.
I'm working on a project right now, a building that won an architectural award, and it's as if a drunken sailor designed this thing. There's butterfly, top of a mountain, ski, tons of snow. And so what I hate about water management is that if you do simple geometries, then life is easy to manage water. But if you make it, if you make it geometrically complex, you're making it really hard to water manage. But this is something I've always credited you for, Steve. Your buildings, how do you get people to be attracted to your designs and keep the geometry simple?
I bully them.
Yes. He also never goes to a point where it's overly complicated. So we don't have to try to rein it in from there.
They try and push it. And then you can say, well, we can put those 5 dormers on the roof if you want. But each one's probably about $8,000. So you're adding about $40,000. And the thing you have to remember, and I just had this conversation with a client. I said, we put that dormer up there. It's going to look nice, but understand it is a maintenance liability from day one. That's all it is. Yeah, it offers some aesthetics, but it is nothing but a maintenance liability that it is always just going to ask you got to take care of me because I'm up here and I'm getting rained on and frozen and baked and I'm a challenge.
Speaking of the idea of like not overly complicating that to start out with, Steve and I drove past this morning. It was a valley over the middle of the house.
There's like a twin gable that fed to a V right over the front door.
And then that fed to a hip that was right underneath of it.
That spread it. So it was like an hourglass. Yeah. And it was 2 duplexes, so there were 2 of them. So they figured they must have done something right because they did it again.
Yeah. Or they did it quickly enough that they didn't. And there was a guy up there trying to fix something.
Doing something.
Geez. Well, it's interesting because to a non-building person, that may look geometrically intriguing. Mm-hmm. But when we look at it, it's like, oh, this is just a nightmare. It's ugly because of the trouble it represents.
But I have that one picture that I always present, and that's from an 8-figure house. Yes, I said that right. 8 figures. And there's these dormers that are literally like the roof eaves are about 3 inches apart from each other. And there's like 6 of them in a row.
Yep. I remember this picture.
So that bank of dormers, somebody thought that was attractive, but you look at it and you say that's not pretty at all.
I call it Glacier Alley because I've been there in the winter. So they start sometime in early December and just kind of back up the valley all winter long.
So one of the things that I hate about water management is that manufacturers that make products for part of the exterior assembly make individual products, but no one is making systems of stuff that fits together. So it's crazy to be putting all these individual products together, and then we end up with all kinds of material compatibility issues. So it drives me nuts that, when we make an automobile, all the systems fit together because it's all done under one system. But with homes, it's just...
Do you think we ever get there? Like I've often said that I think the future of if you're going to do manufactured housing, it's not by a company that has ever done housing or is in housing. It's somebody like a car manufacturer or somebody that has this systems thinking. But you brought up a really good point is that I think one of the failures, and there's that Einstein quote that you can't solve a problem by the means that created it.
Mm-hmm.
And so could it be, and maybe we talk about this in the future, that the problem with manufacturing housing is that we're still taking all this series of components from manufacturers, putting them together and calling it a house, rather than having somebody like a Toyota or a Mitsubishi make everything. So they make the fiberglass sill components. They make the windows that lock into those sill components that then fit into a wall that they've designed just like a car. And that you have this kind of modular system that things just click, snap, and get flashed or whatever, and then you get a house.
Well, we've been waiting for this approach to building for
pretty much my whole career. The conversation hasn't changed one iota. So we might think we're ahead of the game because there's some people out there doing it, but there was somebody out there doing it 30 years ago, and there'll be somebody doing it 30 years from now.
Yeah, we haven't cracked that nut yet.
So anyways, that was yours. Did you get a con? You didn't.
I did not.
You did the whole Switzerland thing.
Well,
so.
I actually have a separate thing that angers me. The hate.
Ooh, it angers him.
It falls into the rain screen conversation that we've been having. The outright ability of our industry to go, well, yeah, but that didn't fit the budget when it comes to rain screen, specifically rain screen, because it's super cheap. Like a 4,000 square foot house, we add $2,500. You can swap to a different countertop and have no budget effect at that point. You can swap to a different tile. You could, there's a million things that you could do there to save $2,500 to justify higher durability.
And there's probably, I can't think, I was just, when you were talking, I was thinking, is there anything on a house that has more of an impact than a rain screen system?
Certainly not per dollar spent.
Yeah.
I don't think
so either.
I'm trying to imagine.
Because when you think of all the building failures, most of them, and the high cost ones, are related to water, and they're related to water not being able to drain.
Yeah.
So having a rain screen is probably, I would say it's probably one of the most important things you can do to a building.
There are climates where arguably you could say that water management is not number one, but we have trouble with buildings that are leaking because of irrigation systems. So I don't know. I think even in hot, dry climates, you still have to have an awful lot of respect for water management.
I agree.
And I'm going to chime in here. One of the things that I hate about water management is that we have to be careful about bulk water coming down, and then we've got to worry about water moving up against the force of gravity because of wicking. I think that makes our lives a lot more complicated, that we can't just worry about it coming down. We got to worry about it coming up. That's just sad.
It's coming at you. It's coming down. It's coming up. Water is all around us. Wow. Silence. Three of us are
speechless.
But that's all right. Speechless is good. It gives our audience a time to think, to reflect on what we've just been talking about.
To adjust the volume knob to see if something happened to the audio.
So when I go, wah, you know that. Gosh. All right. Well, let's have some fun. All right. Are you done with your pro and cons? Are you done over there, Switzerland? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm done. I don't think we need to talk any more about it. I think that's good. And we'll move on to air tightness. So do you want to close it out, Jake?
Sure. So this was, as Steve started to say in the beginning, this is one of four. We're going to talk about the control layers. We're going to do this love and hate topic with all those. So if you want to keep from missing out, you're going to want to subscribe either on iTunes, Spotify, or to the YouTube channel. The benefit of subscribing on YouTube is you also get content that doesn't get published.
Hey, you should tell Peter about the guy you talked to, the guy that at the bank with the podcast.
No, well, we'll tell that story off the air.
No, well, I mean, you can tell the good stuff. The fact that he's like, hey, you're the guy that does that podcast thing, right? And Jake's like, yeah. And he goes, yeah, I listened to it. He goes, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I listened to like 4 or 5. They sounded pretty good.
So that was an endorsement of our podcast?
that was the endorsement. It was over my head, but they were pretty good.
Well, stay tuned because I'm going to talk about my experience with someone who learned about the podcast when we talk about water efficiency. Got a good story for that one.
Wow.
But I just want to be clear
Get the
that since this is the love-hate, do not click the like button. Click the love button.
Okay.
Right? Am I doing it?
Being a child of the 60s.
Yeah. So is there a love button
Peace,
on
brother.
social media?
Peace, brother.
I don't think so.
Damn. Because he just said
Also,
none of this
love
middle
button
ground.
sounds like a vulgar term.
As soon as he came out of my mouth, I thought, whoa, that's not.
No, so you always got to take it there.
That's where my
Peter's
brain
a flower
lives.
child.
That's where my brain lives.
Peter's a flower child.
Thanks for watching the podcast today.
Bye-bye.
See ya.